Hi, so today we're up and close with Omar Salam. Omar, you are an advertising account manager at Memac Ogilvy. Today you're here to tell us a little bit about how you started your career in advertising after university, so we're very excited to have you here. So Omar, thanks so much for being here with Ojo. If you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you kind of started your career in advertising so our viewers get to know you a little bit better.
Thanks, Zainab, for having me here at Ojo. It's a great pleasure to be here. Just to give you a little bit of background about me growing up into my career, if we put it that way. I am originally Egyptian. I was born and raised in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where I then moved here to Dubai during my senior year in high school, where I graduated. And then I decided to continue my university studies here in Dubai.
So, I know you went to the American University of Dubai. Could you tell us a little bit about how you progressed from university into your career in advertising?
So I joined the American University in Dubai initially as a finance major. I tried pursuing that major for about 2 years before I eventually found out that it's not where I want to be. It's not what I actually want to do. Took a bunch of really bad accounting classes and math classes to find out that it's not for me. But at the same time, I was introduced to our professor in university for advertising and integrated marketing communication, where he talked to me a little bit about a career in advertising, about the kind of courses he offers in university, which really caught my attention. I spent that day reading more about the subject, about history of advertising, the amount of fun you can have in your career, basically in advertising. So I mostly didn't think twice about it when dropped my finance major and switched to advertising and integrated marketing communication. And I mostly focused on that for the next couple of years in university. Alongside that, I did a few internships throughout my free time, basically at university, and I kind of grew to love the major a lot more. I was really excited to have a career in advertising after getting a whole lot of previews from my internship about how my career and my day-to-day life would look like afterwards.
That's really interesting. So Omar, can you tell us a little bit more about what the day in the life of an advertising account manager looks like? What does your day-to-day typically entail? Because we know that every day is different in the world of advertising.
Well, my day starts off with a whole lot of coffee just to try and get through the day. I like to reach my office early, a little bit earlier than 9, just to catch up on all my emails, prepare my list of things I need to accomplish and finish throughout the day. And then by 9 a.m., I'd already prepared what needs to be done, all the briefs that need to be sent out to all the different teams, and everything I need to catch up throughout the day. And then from 9 to 10, this is basically where I get in touch with my internal teams, following up on pre-existing briefs in my pipeline and informing them about what I have prepared for them for the day. And then afterwards, from 10 pretty much to the end of the day, this is where I follow up with the team on the existing briefs in the pipeline. I reach out to clients for new briefs. We have discussions about the work in progress, any problem that might arise, what's the best way to tackle, who's the best person to contact to help us solve this specific problem. And finally, to do a little bit of research about what's happening in the market, what are my competitors doing, how does my brand come off in the market, and any kind of thought starters or anything interesting I come across to share with my relevant teams and with my client, of course.
So tell us, how would you describe the role of an advertising account manager?
An account manager is basically in charge of all the communication that happens for the specific brand he's working on. So if I would summarize it in a phrase, I would say to the client, I'm the agency. To my agency, I'm the client. Part of my main responsibilities is ensuring all the client requests and campaigns are being met, timelines are being met internally. I make sure that all the relevant teams I'm working with understand what is required, they're keeping up with the timelines needed. I'm also responsible for ensuring the account financials are within their scope of work, and in short, our services are beneficial for the client. And most importantly, trying to grow that relationship with the client that would give them the sense of trust that we are the brand custodians, we're there to help, we're there as part of their extended team members, and we're there to ensure their business needs are being met and our objectives are being met as well.
So it seems like there are so many moving parts in your day-to-day. What would you say are the key skills that are required to really succeed in the world of advertising?
Well, I would say account managers in specific, we deal with a lot of people and a lot of different teams on a day-to-day basis. Especially when working on an over-demanding account where there's a lot of work in the pipeline, a lot of different requests. I would say the key skills needed, basically, the account manager needs to be very organized, they need to master attention to detail, ensure the deliverables being met are up to standard, they answer the brief that's required from them. The account managers need to ensure they know how to handle people, how to communicate with people, because we deal with a lot of different people internally and externally, whether it's from the client side, suppliers, internal team. So you deal on a day-to-day basis with a lot of people that you need to ensure they understand what's required, understand the timelines, understand the brief that's given, and work with them on reaching with their deliverables to what is needed from them.
We know you've worked with some of the biggest automotive clients in the world in your career in advertising. Can you give us some insight on what the end-to-end cycle of getting a brief and successfully delivering and running a good campaign would look like?
Well, certainly a brief, when it first initiates from the client side, the whole point of a brief is that there was a problem that arose to the client that needed a solution. That problem could be in many different shapes or forms, whether it's from a drop in sales or an irregularity in the way business is handled from a day-to-day point of view. Or it could be from external factors that happen that require the brand to take action in terms of communication. So to sum it up, there is a problem or a challenge that needs to be answered. So working on that, or whether the brief starts when the client acknowledging or flagging the problem they have, and then communicating to you that this is the situation, this is what's going on, how do we fix it? And then from there, you start working with the client on building a brief, finding out more, understanding from a client's point of view how this problem has impacted their business, what are the repercussions from that problem, how did they notice it. All of these data or information could help you then build your internal brief. Once you're aligned with client and with your client and you understand what the problem is, you understand the details from the client's point of view, you could then start writing your own brief, which you'd be channeling internally. In your brief, try to make it as simple as possible, but at the end of the day, it needs to have all the information right. It needs to have all the details that the person reading that brief would be able to understand. It should not be complicated. Just the simpler, the better it is for that person to comprehend the problem and then later be able to build up on that. I would then, as soon as I write my brief, I would then share it with our strategy and planning team, where they would take the brief, understand the problem, and then they would do their own research in terms of the best way to solve that problem in specific. So that would be through an insight they found, a separate angle, a strategic angle that we could leverage in our campaign to help solve that problem. Once they're done with their insight, we see that this is a possible solution to the problem that arose, and we could definitely back that up with our research and data. We present the insight and the solution to the client. Once we get their buy-in, we then work with the planning team on coming up with a brief for the creative team. And this is where the creative team basically take the insight, they understand, we make sure they understand of what the problem is, they understand what the solution is from the insight and the angle we should leverage. And basically the creative team comes up with the nice, fun, and engaging way to interact with the target audience and with the people who will be seeing our message, basically. So they would take our key insight, take our key message, turn it into a fun message that would be then executed, or it could live across different platforms. So whether it should be done through a radio script, or it should be done through a film or a simple poster. It could be a social activation. It could be an on-ground event. So they would be the team responsible in coming up with the way that insight would be told, how it would be told, and how it would live across our target audience. Once they're done, we go back to the client presenting, this is our ideas, this is how we see the execution going on the campaign. And then this is where we work hand in hand with the media agency in coming up with the best media plan for this campaign. So we involve them in our strategy solutions, our insight that we found, our top line creative approach, how are we going to tackle that? And this is when the media agency would start working on their own media strategy and media plan for that specific campaign. Up until now, this is where all the planning came in. Planning is done, everyone's happy. This is when we start executing. And this is where the challenge comes in. So by the execution part, this is where we already have a media plan ready, and we need to start executing the campaign deliverables based on how it's going to reach our target audience, where it's going to reach them, and execute our campaign deliverables based on that. So it could come in executing different TV spots or video edits, radio spots, even a print ad or digital solution, or executing the digital deliverables we have. So this is where it involves a lot of attention to detail, a lot of quality assurance that the same quality of execution, the same message is living across all our channels and all our deliverables. After that, once the campaign is live, all our deliverables are already live, we're reaching out, we're out there to the people, to our target audience. This is where we start monitoring our campaign's performance. And this is mostly working very closely with our media agency, our media partners, to understand how's the campaign performing across each specific channel, and understanding where we need to optimize, what we need to change, and how could we make that campaign perform better.
So you spoke about a variety of different channels. Are there fixed channels that you always use in your campaigns? How does that work?
The channel you choose to reach your target audience heavily depends on who your target audience are. The whole beauty of advertising is that you're not stuck to one specific channel. It's about really getting to know your audience, getting to know what they like, what the best way to reach them, what the best time to reach them. And from that, you'd be able to guess or to choose your specific channel. So a brief example, I wouldn't expect to reach a 60-year-old guy through Instagram or Pinterest. I'd most likely reach him through a newspaper or through a radio spot. But on the other hand, reaching a millennium or a Generation Z target audience, I'd need to think about TikTok, for example, or social media platforms where they're mostly active, they're mostly available, and basically I'll be reaching them through the channels that are most relevant to them and most interesting to them.
So the channels you use are different across all the campaigns you're working on, depending on who you're trying to reach and what is the best way to reach them.
Definitely, and what the campaign objective, what my objectives of the campaign are. So the deliverables for each, to answer your question, the deliverables for each campaign heavily depends on who my target audience are, and basically what am I trying to tell them.
As you described, the world of advertising is very fluid and is heavily dependent on what's going on in the world. How do you adapt and change based on external factors, and is that important for brands to be doing?
Brands need to be really relevant and really up to date with what's going on in their societies and in their communities. Brands should aspire to be part of the community, part of the society they're available in. Especially when they're communicating with people, they can't be irrelevant, or brands need to be very connected to their communities. They need to be relevant, up to date on what's going on. They need to make people feel that they share the same values, they share the same goals, and they're available to support the people with their own views. And at the end of the day, they're just part of the community. They need to voice that out, and they need to ensure, or through advertising, this is how we ensure people understand that we're there and how we support them, how we give back.
So you've given us some great insight into the world of advertising and what your job and career looks like. For a new graduate that's just starting out, maybe on an internship or on their first job, what would it take for them to really stand out and be a stellar candidate on your team?
I would look for candidates that are very passionate. They really believe in what they do. They believe in the power of advertising and how that could help the societies and support the people they're basically a part of. I would look for candidates that are very responsible and have that high sense of ownership, whether it's ownership on the brand they represent, the brand they're working with, they have a high sense of ownership on the jobs they're doing, their team members, and even the agency. I need to be able to see that the candidate can actually take a job, take a brief, understand it, execute it, recommend some ideas, have a lot of attention to detail, understand or make sure that while the brief is being executed, or our deliverables are being executed in terms of the campaign, it's still relevant, it answers the brief, proactiveness, that they come up with insights or new solutions that would help uplift the campaign, uplift the brand, and as an all, like I said, a sense of ownership that they're here, they're rebellious in a way to try and try to create change in the brief, try to leave an impact on the campaign, on the brand, on the agency, and on their team members, even on the target audience.
That's really great insight. So you're looking for someone who's a self-starter, who will take ownership, be proactive, go above and beyond to find interesting solutions for the brief, for the campaign, for the client, and really be a responsible and someone who can essentially get the job done that you trust.
No, I agree that candidates should stand out and take ownership on what they do. They need to make a difference from their first day in the agency.
Cool. So Omar, what is the one last piece of advice that you would give to every graduate aspiring to have a career like yours?
So my last piece of advice to all graduates looking for a career in marketing and advertising: always make sure that the agency you're working for is paying you for a skill, not for a job.
Thank you so much for your time and your insights into what a career in advertising looks like. You've given all our graduates some great points to go and think about, and hopefully that helps them excel in achieving their dreams with a career in advertising. So we're so glad to have you, and thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.